Hello, somebody wanted me to do a video about this documentary, The Corporation. You can find it on Azure Whale. I think it was Gypsy Hustled, but I'm not totally sure who made request. I saw it last night. It's like 2 hours and 24 minutes long. Yeah, it was interesting. It basically talks about the history of the corporation, what corporations are, and then like what's wrong with the corporation, where corporations went wrong. So it's good. It's a good video. I recommend anybody to watch it. I'm gonna eat my scab. So basically, the thing that's wrong with corporations is that, well, okay, what is a corporation? It's a bunch of people who get together to, they pool their money together to do a big business venture. Using lots of different skills and people and resources and stuff to make money for everybody. The beginning of the corporation, I think it was the East India Company. It was back, in the 1600s when we were all doing the trade, the age of colonialism, when we were doing the boats all over the world and doing the spice trade, and so there was a lot of money to be made. Because coinciding with also the Industrial Revolution, where we could have a higher population producing more, and then so there's more people more population, more people who can buy stuff, and then so this whole new merchant class of people who do their boats all over the world and trade, and so you have these big companies of people who would pool their money together and make a lot of money. And it was kind of the beginning of, it was more of a democratic system of government. It was, in the beginning, it was a step up. It was less oligarchical. You had these companies with more people with more of a voice. But it was kind of quasi-government, because they were protected by the army of the countries, and in a lot of cases, the actual boats, which were the trading boats, were also warships, and and the people who were in them were kind of like even like soldiers and stuff, generals from the. So it was kind of the beginning of kind of the mixing of business and government, and we're still there now. But fast forward into the future, it started to cause problems when corporations, all their in theory, the goal of the corporation is to make money. That's why people would invest in a corporation. People invest to make money. People don't invest in corporations, in businesses, publicly traded businesses, to, because they want to make the world a better place. It's to make money. The stock goes up, and then you can sell it and make more money, and that's what trading is all about. So because of that, the people who run the companies are expected to make decisions that are going to make all of the shareholders more money. And so it becomes very difficult to have your moral compass continuing to point north, because there's so much pressure to, and also in a business environment, it's very competitive all the time. So kind of like professional athletes, when it gets so competitive, and if one guy does drugs to get better, and then he's the best, then everybody else is going to start doing it. And that's kind of where we're at now. Like, all these different corporations are doing whatever it takes to make money, and then they kind of block out all of them, like moral gray areas, and they don't think about it. And then a lot of people just take it way too far, and they end up doing a lot of bad things. So this documentary, The Corporation, was just a series of different chapters. I didn't watch the documentary; I listened to it, but I copied a section of the documentary, and I saw that it does have the different like official chapters in it. And I actually did copy the one of them, which I liked a lot, about Fox News. There were these investigative reporters in Fox News. This is like in the 80s or something. And they were supposed to go out there and do the investigative reporting. So they did the report on Monsanto and their bovine growth hormone, which causes ulcers in the udders, which pop and then get pus mixed in with the milk. So when you go and buy milk at the store, there's pus in it. And I mean, I don't buy milk at the store. I'm afraid of that stuff. I get like soy milk. When I do get milk. But they had Monsanto go in there to try to rewrite the story. And then, first they tried to bribe them. They wouldn't take the money. And then first they tried to tell them that they weren't allowed to do it. Then tried to bribe them, and then tried to re-edit it. And they just kept making them re-edit it like 80 times, all these different words and stuff, until their contract was up and they were all fired. And they couldn't air the story. So then the lady sued in whistleblower status because they... I can't remember what the rules for that were, but and I don't think she won, but So the reason was because Fox News was owned by Rupert Murdoch, which owned all these different channels, and he had business dealings with Monsanto. I don't know how the web of all business, owning of businesses and media and everything is concerned. But if anybody knows of a website out there that has it illustrated in a map, that would be awesome. If I had the time, or whenever I have the time, I'll make one if somebody else doesn't. Because that'd be really interesting to look at, because there's lots of newspapers and media outlets that are owned by business organizations. And for example, the New York Post, or LA Post, or whatever, loses like millions of dollars every year because nobody reads it, but it's all propaganda, but it poses as a newspaper, but it's good propaganda for the owner of it, I think, Rupert Murdoch. But so this kind of stuff, making this stuff transparent, is really interesting. And I think that's the main thing that will help the problem with the corporations is transparency. Once you know what's going on, then we all put a stop to it. It's when it's all That's why Monsanto wanted to stop the investigative journalists from printing the story, because that was going to expose it. There was another story in here. It was actually the one right after the Fox News ones, where they were using 13-year-old kids to make, I guess, Kathy Lee Gifford's clothing line. And some investigative journalists went down there and actually found some of these girls. But then they had their thugs in there, telling them they couldn't have the meeting. But then the girl just kind of slipped in the pay stub underneath. And then they contacted her later and brought her up to America. And they went to court, and Kathy Gifford went public and said, "Hey, I don't know anything. I didn't know that was even happening." And a thing this was showing was that when they build these garments, they're built. Like the cost to make it is like 1/3 of 1% of what they sell it for. Because they pay these people like $3 a day because they have nothing else no other job to get, and then they build them really fast. They're not given much time to make it. So the money making of all of these third world garment factories and stuff is it's just a money making operation for anybody but the person who actually makes it. So so how do we, and some other examples of government, big companies just doing what it takes, even though it's not good for the world at large. Well, there's lots of examples about that. I think that's pretty much common knowledge. The real question is, how do you put a stop to it? It's interesting, the psychology. People kind of don't think about it, what they're doing, and that goes to everybody, not just the bosses of the businesses. They justify it because if they didn't do it, somebody else would, and so they might as well be the person up there making it. But we're all such consumers that we're killing the planet, and all the people on the top know this, but they don't need to have it fall down in their watch. They can retire and then the whole world can crash down. But I think more and more people are feeling more responsibility for it. So how do we restructure our business so that it's not like an all money, where we all follow money no matter what? Well, we need more transparency and we need more government regulation. The reason that these corporations, like they were in this documentary, The Corporation, they gave so many examples in the documentary, and that'd be cool to see a list of all the examples, but it was like hundreds. I think the ones they mentioned, it was like at least a couple dozen, where the corporation would get busted, like all these ones we've all heard of, all of them, polluting and this and that, and then they pay like this exorbitant fee, like $500 million or something. And but the fact of the matter is that they made a lot more money than the fees that they paid. So they happily pay that fee. It's kind of like the tax, and then they keep doing what they're doing over and over again. And the reason that the fees aren't big enough is because their politicians are bought, and so they don't set high enough fees, which really kind of pisses me off, because then you'll let these people just pay a fine for fucking up the whole world, but then somebody is busted like selling crack out of their house and they have to go to jail for the rest of their life. So basically what we need to do, and I think somebody was mentioning it in the documentary, is that whenever a company is busted doing something really destructive to humanity, you need to get new management in that. You can't just the consequences need to be a lot heavier. You can't just fine them and then let them keep doing the same thing, the same people. You got to throw the people in jail. Maybe not for life, like the poor little crack dealer, but throw them in jail for like 10 years or something, and then break up companies. Whenever companies get too powerful and they do this kind of stuff, set up laws where you would break up the company and be able to have other bunch of little companies take it over. And that's another big problem with corporations is companies don't need to be so big. When companies are so big, it ends up causing our lives, the business process of everything, to be over bureaucratic, over like not streamlined enough, just a waste. Everything's a waste. You'll end up having all these people showing up at work, and half the day they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs, type of a situation. Well, the more obvious is, these big companies, they spend most of their money on lobbyists, and then the lobbyists spend all their money on the politicians, for the politicians to make stupid decisions. Why don't you just, if that's the case, why don't you just have the governments be our politicians? It'd save a lot of money. It'd save all the money in advertising. It'd save the money in paying the politicians and providing infrastructure for the politicians to operate in. Just let the companies run the whole world like a monarchy. Well, obviously nobody's going to go for that. So we should just do it the way it's supposed to be done, and just Go back to having politicians make decisions that are good for everybody. So how do you do that? Well, the thing that'll fix everything is it's education. It's transparency, but you can't have education without transparency. Education begins with transparency. For example, if you have really smart people who want to do their research and they want to find out what the laws are and the history of a company and the dealings and stuff, the information has to be there if you Google it. If you go to the different government agency websites, you're not going to see any information about their actual operations. You're not going to know how much money they're spending or where they're spending the money. And that's the first thing you need to do so that people can educate themselves. But before that, people are so uneducated that you have to just let people know that how controlled the politicians are by the corporations, and then people can start actually voting politicians in, not because they have the most, they're on the TV the most, or on the radio the most, or have the most signs all over the place, but because you've gone to their website and you see, oh look at this guy, he explains it well. He explains it in writing and videos. So the politicians of the future need to be statesmen, not just people who make the laws, but people who explain why the laws are and explain the history behind everything, and just have opinions and explain and talk in a very affluent in their, is that the word, and the words they use, just their verbal diarrhea. They'll just go above and beyond the call of duty when you ask them questions about what they think about all the policies and what they're doing and this and that and why they're making decisions, and even filming all of their meetings with everybody, and then you're good to go. Stuff will get better. Now, as far as the actual structure of the corporation, where people invest to make money, I think it's a good way to fund, enterprises. I don't think it's like the dance between the fine line between having something controlled by the government and being controlled by private people. It's you could write a whole book just about that, where exactly that line should be in every case. But we definitely need the government to put regulations on people, on all these companies, and then to to throw their bosses in jail when they break the rules, and to break up the company if they, get a certain of the monopoly and stuff, just to keep, so that entrepreneurs can run businesses at a much more efficient way than some big business. The only reason that the big business can do it more efficiently is because they have unfair advantage. They have to pay certain amount of money just to get registered for certain things, and so anyways, we got to just make it simple and easy for people. And once the technology is going to help everybody. Once the technology gets up there, high tech stuff, for example, the little things that would just scan all of your goods before you put it in your store, like everybody can afford that, so you don't have to, and you don't have to buy, not special back dealings where you have to buy a certain amount of stuff to get a certain price on something. Just sell it for the same price to everybody. I don't see why people have to have these special deals, the mom and pop store should be able to buy something for the same price as a Walmart does. Apart from, the shipping would be more expensive if you don't buy as much, but that should be the only reason, And it gets kind of complicated, but I keep going back to the transparency. If transparency is the magic pill for everything, because if there's a certain company that does bad things, like hires 13-year-olds and pays them $3 a day, but everybody knew about it, knew that they did that, and everybody who was a shareholder everybody knew that person was a shareholder. Like, you go to the company, and it says, okay, this is who we hire and how much we pay, and on the same page, this is the link to all the people who are the shareholders. you click on a person and it shows them what companies they invest in, and it gives people a rating on like how good the companies are, how well rated the companies that they invest in are rated. So you have some guy who's invests in a whole bunch of companies, but he's like way down here in the red zone because he invests in all the bad companies. And everybody knew about that. It would embarrass the shit out of him. And then other people would want to associate with him, and then he would do as well as a businessman. And like there's a website called Fact Check or politifact.com. And they have like a half dozen different, or maybe a dozen, I don't know, different politicians up there, and they have the percentages of how many times they tell the truth. That's another example of transparency. People are figuring out how much people are telling the truth and not telling the truth. And it's actually kind of in the point getting comical where politicians just lie, And then you can make fun of the politicians for lying. And sure, for example, I was just watching Young Turks, and they had a rally about the NSA or the FBI supposedly targeting the Tea Party groups, but they found out that they weren't targeting the Tea Party groups. They were just a bunch of Tea Party groups who were registering at that time, and they were just auditing a certain random number of all the people who were registering. They were all Tea Party, so that's why. Anyways, then they found that out, and the person in the IRS and everybody, they figured it out, and it was all clear. All the insiders who were in there explained why. It was totally objective. And even after that, they had Rand Paul and some other, conservative up there in some rally saying the same shit. Like, when's Obama? And Obama had nothing to do with it. It was just some small, like, IRS thing. When is Obama going to stop targeting our IRS? Just making shit up. And all the people in the crowd, like, yay, fuck them, it's just comical when you see that kind of stuff. Because there's for a while, there's going to be pockets of stupid people out there who are going to say stupid stuff. I mean, you still have people in the Ku Klux Klan out there trying to make videos saying how the black people needs to go back to Africa. Like, they're always going to have that kind of stuff. So just like make fun of them and expose it. And then the more you do that, the less of those kinds of ignorant people they're going to be, and the more of the smart people are going to be who actually look at stuff objectively and don't get all like bent out of shape, thinking that it's like everybody else is the bad guy. Projection, it's the world is getting so transparent that the people who are the most guilty, they're screaming and pointing to other people saying that they're doing that. I saw another video about Young Turks today, how they were accused of being funded by George Soros and by some, like conservative, and they're like, we've never been funded by George Soros, and there's these people who get fun, and then they're like moaning about how on YouTube it's all liberals and so then all the liberal groups are getting funded by YouTube, like they're just, because that's what happens to them, so they just point to you, and it's just all this projection is getting more and more like evident and comical, now it's just funny, like in 4 years when we go to the Republican primary, we'll probably have another couple of Republican jokers up there who are like rich businessmen plugged in just with these like Herman Cain, who just have these silly simple economic plans that don't make any sense and don't have any actual opinions about anything, and have advertisements on the TV that's just has nothing to do with politics. It's just something to try to make them look cool or something, and it'll just get more and more comical. So anyways, as that goes on in the future, I think corporations will be more beholden to good politicians who put more restrictions on the corporations, and the corporation will be able to use front groups a lot less and less, and then people understand the difference between a newspaper that's paid for by big business, but actually loses money because nobody reads it, but they try to make it seem like everybody reads it, and all this like this underhanded stuff. And now the question, the people who are involved in this kind of stuff, like all these like shady, spying on other businesses and lying and trying to, make stuff appear to be what it isn't. The people who are involved in it justify it because they're like, they think it's just part of the game. But, I would never do that. I would never be involved in anything like that, and I wouldn't, justify being a thief or anything like that. I'd rather have a poor paying job and just a simple life where I don't spend any money and I don't, do anything, but as long as what I do is good, I wouldn't, getting really rich off of doing these sneaky little games, it wouldn't make me happy. And I don't think those people are particularly happy either. But like, if you're going to point the blame at people, who are the bad people? These corporations and the lobbyists who pay them, or the politicians who do what they say. I would say the politicians are the worst because they're actually misrepresenting what they are. There was actually, maybe I'll include it in this video, but there's a segment of Jesse Ventura, one of the conspiracy theories, and he busted into the top guys who work at Goldman Sachs, and he's all saying like, you guys were doing all that bank shit to make yourself so rich. Your main guy, he got $30 million in bonuses last year. And one of the guys like, I'm offended that you would think that's a lot of money. They pay Darryl Strawberry that much money, and we're cooler than some stupid football or baseball player. And Ventura was like, yeah, but you're doing it with Americans' money. And some other guy goes, well, don't blame us because the system is corrupt. And that's kind of an interesting point to make. Like, don't blame us for taking advantage of a corrupt system and getting rich off of it. It's a system that needs to be fixed. So, yeah, in the end, I would say the politicians are the ones who are at fault the most. Those are like a politician, those are the kind of people who are just don't give a fuck. They could look in your face and lie to you, and you just don't give a shit. Now, then you got the leader of the business who's super rich, who plays by the rules because the rules are fucked up, and then bends the rules and all that kind of stuff. Now he's also a douchebag, not as bad as a politician though. But so like, how does this affect, like, how should the average person view this kind of stuff? Well, I think the number one thing is because the world is so fucking twisted and convoluted right now with politics and the rich getting richer and using the government to get their way, that even though it's bad for everybody else, and is that we all shouldn't be looking at somebody who has a lot of money and say that that's like cool. I mean, now don't take it too far and get all like jealous and pissed off at the guy with the money, but just like if you want to decide like who's cool and who's not cool, just like see if what they do is good for the world, and if they're concerned with the world. And even some rich ass dude who's, let's say, like there was a guy who is the boss of Shell, and he was and a bunch of Earth First people went to his house and were protesting what Shell was doing, and he went out and talked to him, and he was saying that he was trying to make the world a better place within the position of power that he was in. Now those kinds of people are cool, so not everybody who's the boss of a corporation is bad, or is rich is bad or whatever, but it's pretty easy to tell, if somebody is. Like if you're like a hippie who just, lovey-dovey, happy dude who wants to everything, weed to be legal and freedom and all that, and then some boss of some corporation is like treating that hippie with disrespect, then he's, he contempts him, he doesn't give a fuck, and he's a dick. So you can judge just different people individually just on how their demeanor is. And if some rich dude's looking down his nose at you, then he's got that. He's one of those people who, he's one of these elitist people, and then he doesn't give a shit, and he's probably one of the guys who's been in the rules and breaking the rules and all that kind of stuff. But if there's some super rich boss of some multinational corporation who agrees with political policy that makes sense, and he respects everybody the same, and then you can trust that he's trying to make the world a better place. Overall, the world will be a better place. But it just has to get to that point where everybody gets educated and knows what's going on. So when people do, try to explain what's going on, how to fix the world, we should be really pay attention to examples, like just specific laws, and then argue the law and argue somebody's point of view. Don't argue the person themselves or attack the person themselves. And if somebody does, disagree with you or whatever, and then ends up attacking you personally, then you know that they're one of the bad guys. They're just and just these stories and the documentary, The Corporation, has a few of these examples of where you try to smear somebody just because they're exposing you. Then it can become just another entertaining example of how mafioso type people still control the world and how it works, and we can weed them out one by one as time goes on. But at the end of the day, it just revolves around laws. You just make the laws to fix, but it's just like, for example, front groups and just ways that corporations try to make people who are trying to make more regulation to protect regular people. Some of the funny stuff that they say, I think, is like socialism, where they use these words. He's a communist. Oh, this is socialism. Like Obamacare. This is socialism. Like Russia. Remember Russia? We don't want to be like Russia. And it's like, no, chill out, dude. It's not socialism. It's just the government taking a little bit more control of stuff to make it more fair for everybody. Like Obamacare. I think Obamacare is good. We need to have stuff that everybody uses to be nationalized. Even banks, or at least, to a point. Like controlled by the government. Not so that they can't run wild and do whatever they want. Jack up your interest rate up to 25%, like they did to me, even though I didn't miss any payments. And on the credit cards, and anybody who uses these catchphrases, socialism, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And if it's some smart dude on top who's in the business, or is a politician who uses those words, then he's just a stooge. Because smart people and good people don't just throw catchphrases at other people. Oh, this is socialism. You were bad. Oh my God. And then get really upset. What's the world coming to? Then you're like, okay, yeah, you're freaking out. Because that's like you're drawing for straws. That's the last thing you can do in your argument. That's all you have left. You can't calmly explain your position because you don't have one. All you can do now is freak out. So when anybody acts like that, in order to save time, in order to know if what they're telling the truth or not, if they act like that, then they're full of shit. And that's what these Fox News people do all the time. Like, what's that guy, Greg Hutzfeldt? That guy's a joke. He like Jim Carrey makes that song about the guns, and all of a sudden he hates Jim Carrey, and he's all pissed off and yelling. And they try to sound intelligent by rhyming their words, and it's like, okay, cool, I know you're an idiot, and then I turn it off and I stop wasting my time with them. But then if they're calm and they're explaining and it's like they're educating you at the same time, then yeah, it's cool. So anyway, that's that. I like the documentary. Any documentary that has clips of actual, examples of how corporations just do what it takes to make money. It's good to educate everybody on what's going on and what they're doing, and even the people working in there kind of getting out of their trance and thinking like, oh, it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter, because if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else, and that's the way the world is. We need to step out of the trance and start to do stuff that's good for the world and good for everybody else, and then the world can be a better place. But a world of just one real big problem with the way that this business set up also is franchises. Anything that causes people to not have to do anything for money is not good, and because they're just leeching the money off of the other people. Like some rich dude, like the owner of McDonald's, and he's there, and sitting on his ass, raking in shitloads of money and just sitting on his ass, and then all of his friends and family and everything don't have to do anything, and then they get entitled feelings, and then they'll do anything to keep that money, and then they'll start lying. It's kind of like a cancer of society when you have all these rich people who don't have to work. And at the same time, they're getting the royalties from the people who are actually doing the work, who aren't making any money, and then they can't make enough money to have a quality of life, and then it just causes problems. So we should make laws that protect, to make it easier for people to just start businesses. Even ease up kind of copyright type of stuff laws. Like if somebody wants to make a hamburger shop, just let them make a hamburger shop, and it's really similar to the McDonald's hamburger, and you go in and make it illegal to do like undercutting, like monitor, lots of monitoring, like monitor how much like the McDonald's is charging. Maybe they're charging less just to get this guy out of business, and just to target franchises. Franchising in America has gone out of control, man. Like all of America is basically the same. It doesn't matter where you are in America. It's the same place. You go to any town, and you've got the Chase Bank, supermarkets aren't quite as uniform as everything else, but I mean, yeah, the Chase Bank, fucking Walmart, Walmart Superstore, Walgreens, McDonald's, Starbucks, everything. It's over and over and over again, and at the point you're like, wait here a second, how come? Now I know that the thing is that those companies do a better job than somebody else. Like I'd go into a Starbucks before I go into a mom and pop coffee shop, because I know that I don't have to pay for the internet, and they're not gonna like kick me out. So people who come up with good. I mean, I'm not saying that franchises are bad. I think franchises are awesome, because the business plan, if it's the best business plan, then it should be the best, and that guy does deserve to sit back and rake in the money. But just don't let him, I'm just saying, keep in mind that when that happens, people get a little greedy for money, and when they get too powerful, then they get corrupted, and they start to bend the rules and make certain deals that are unfair, undercutting and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we need a lot of government oversight. As far as all this whole NSA stuff, personally, I think it would be good for everybody to just chill out and just let the government spy on us, because if that happens, if we let the government spy on us and we don't give a shit, then that'll create a culture where we're all spying on each other, and we can spy on the government, and the government has to disclose more information, and then we can find out, all these little tricks that all these big businesses are doing, and make proper laws that provide a level playing field for everybody. But yeah, it is interesting how people it's kind of like mob mentality, corporations and shareholders and stock market and all that. It's kind of like mob mentality when you have, like a bunch of like people get all pissed off and they start to loot, rioting in the streets. You see a bunch of people, and then you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it too. Nobody can see me. I'll riot and destroy everybody's property. Lynching people, lynch mobs. Let's lynch the black guy. Oh, and then they're all doing it. Where if you were to get those people individually and say, hey, let's lynch them now, with like two people, to be like, what? No, that's bad. So people can be a lot more aggressive and bad in big groups, and that's kind of like corporations, You get a big group of people doing stuff, and they're like, well, everybody else is doing it, so it's like, it won't make a difference if I don't, So we definitely need to encourage individuality more. If you encourage individuality, you're going to allow people to give people more of a habit to stand out, stick their head out, and go, wait, no, I can think for myself. I'm not going to invest in that company, even though if it makes me a little bit more money, I'll invest in the other one that is a good company, or I'll speak my mind in this company if I work here, this kind of a thing. So, but in order to have more individuality, you have to have less judgment against certain individual people. So if somebody's going to, like, for example, me, if I'm going to upload videos on YouTube and yawn, Don't get all pissed off at me just because I'm the only person on YouTube you've ever seen yawn. Just listen to what I'm saying and fucking, and then argue my point, something that I said. Don't say, oh, I don't like you because you're ugly the way that you drank your drink and that's why I hate you, you know? Like, people need to argue people's points, not do character defamation and just decide you hate the whole person. That's what stupid people do. Stupid people are like, they look at the world in black and white. The more shades of color that you can pay attention to, the better off you're going to be. But anyways, I'll leave the link to the documentary, The Corporation. You should check it out because they have a lot of good examples of corporations, suppressing information and buying off politicians to get what they want, and just the history of it. And yeah, man. But if we do all the, transparency and individuality and all that kind of stuff, we can work through it. But it always comes back to the individual person. When we want to fix a big problem, because the corporation thing, it's a systemic problem. It's not like, oh, that boss, he's so bad, I'll kill him and then the world will be better. No. Then he'll just get replaced by somebody else. If systems are, the pyramid is supported by all the little pieces on the bottom. You take all the pieces on the bottom away, and the top's going to come crashing down, So individual people need to change. It kind of reminds me of this. I did this video a couple weeks ago. Somebody wanted me to do a video just what I thought about politics. So I spent an hour talking about why we should just vote for third party or somebody who's not in a party. And why the Democrats and the Republicans are both, bought by all of the big companies. And so some fucking person starts commenting on my video and like attacking me and telling me like as though I don't know what I'm talking about, because I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I like the Democrats more than the Republicans, and he's like, no, they're the same, exactly the same. The Democrats aren't even any better than Republicans. And I was like, in what way? They're like, social in society freedom and in financial and the wars and everything. And I was like, oh really? Like how? And then they keep bringing it back to, yeah, and you don't know shit. You think you're so Democrat, you moron. You don't know that they're both bought by the big companies. And I was like, wait, you didn't even watch my video, Like, people are so quick to just point at somebody who they agree with 99% of the time. And they just want to focus on the bad thing and call somebody bad and then, like, try to say that they're... Well, you can't have a smooth working society when everybody thinks everybody else is fucking evil and bad and stupid when they're not. I just bring it back to projection. It's those people who are the most guilty, who smelt it, dealt it. The people who are most guilty are the ones who are out there pointing and freaking out and saying, you. So the person who was saying that was probably, sure, maybe they voted Green Party like they said, but they were probably were super conservative and voted Republican every other time and hypocritical. So yeah. That's where the juicy part is, when you're talking about how can the individual person change and make the world a better place. And it's by just it's arguing somebody's point, arguing something, and then arguing that, and then not like attacking them and freaking out, and then trying to, besides you're ugly, I mean, just argue the point, and then just assume somebody is as a good person until you find something that they did bad, and then instead of getting all pissed off at them, just mention that's what they said, and then argue that. And then, push for transparency within the government, but start with having more transparency within yourself. Upload YouTube video, express your political ideas to everybody, especially, maybe even not like to individual people you interact with, but at least publicly, like on your website or the YouTube and or Facebook or whatever, and then you can be more, and then don't be afraid of getting spied on by the government. If you're not guilty, why the fuck do you care? And just let the government, I'm sure that they've thwarted a lot of terrorist plots with that. And then we can turn around and go, yeah, I'm gonna film you, cop. I'm gonna go into the courtroom and film you. What? You can't film in the courtroom. You can't film the business dealings. What do you mean I can't film? The government films me all the time in my house and stuff. So, oh yeah, I guess you can, yeah. So, create a culture of surveillance with everybody, and then you can walk in. I'd love to walk into a high end business deal and film the whole damn thing. That'd be awesome. And you know, if some politician is running for office under the platform of transparency, yeah, I'm gonna film all of my business dealings. Then vote for the guy. If that's what we need, don't vote for the dude who's like, you know, who's just because he's Democrat and you hate the Republicans so bad and they're so different, you know. So yeah. Anyways, I don't want to repeat myself, but those are the things. It starts from the ground up, dude. Don't get all pissed off at some rich dude just because he's brainwashed, and he's just a dude who with a lot of money who's addicted to the money like a crackhead's addicted to crack. You don't go around to a crackhead, you fucking asshole crackhead motherfucker. You go to a crackhead and you're like, hey, what can I do to help you get off that crack? You know, here maybe you should go running with me. You know, I'm sure the rich guy does more damage, but you know, I mean, how do you know you wouldn't do the same thing if you weren't in his position? I know I wouldn't, but I'm up here. But all I do is work. I mean, I don't have a life. All I do is work on shit that I think is good for society. So, not to pump myself up, because then people do so much projection if somebody says anything positive about themselves. Oh my God, no, they think they're better than me, just like all those rich people think they're better. Oh my God, yeah, just chill out, man. People need to chill out, be real, be honest, and then have a positive attitude, and the change can happen from a ground up. Okay, but watch it, the corporation. Peace out.